We are back with Vaughn, Judge Luttig, and Andrew. Andrew, our friend Dr. Timothy Snyder, the author of On Tyranny, writes this, quote, President Donald Trump told his Salvadoran counterpart that, quote, homegrowns are next, and that El Salvador would, quote, need to build about 5 more places to hold American citizens. So the President of the United States proposes on camera to deport Americans to foreign concentration camps. Perhaps the worst part is the laughter of the Americans. Your thoughts on this spectacle in the Oval Office?
Leave aside that you've got the president and the vice president and the secretary of state there. You have the sitting attorney general of the United States who knows that that is illegal, who knows that there's been no request, not even an ask, to have Mr. Garcia returned, which would be at least one initial step of compliance with the Supreme Court decision that there'd be that facilitation. There's been no factual inquiry and given to the district court to comply with that order. I mean, it is, you know, I have to say, Judge Luttig is so much smarter than I am. I am such an institutionalist, and I thought this day would never come. But I want to make sure people understand we are here. Everyone's, at least I have tried to say, you know, we're not yet in that constitutional crisis. That is what is going on right now. The district court is valiantly trying to basically determine that white is white and black is black and just get answers from the administration, and they're hiding behind the sort of thinnest veneer of saying, oh, well, now that this person's out of the country, we can't possibly do anything. We can't even tell you that we asked to have him be returned. It is a complete flouting of the district court, Court of Appeals, and now Supreme Court orders. It is truly remarkable, and as I've said over and over again, it is the complicity is what makes this so different than Trump 1.0, that you don't have the White House counsel, you don't have the Attorney General, you don't have anyone there to say this is not legal, it is not constitutional, it is not how you're supposed to behave in the United States of America. I mean, this really is the Rubicon that I was hoping we would never, ever get to, but that Judge Luttig correctly said this was going to happen, and it has. This is where we are. It is now going to be up to the Supreme Court to actually show some steel and backbone to find that this is in violation of their order and take as drastic steps as they can, and ideally, again, unanimously, about what is happening here, or we really won't have a country left.
You are all taking my breath away with the clarity of your pronouncements. This piece in the Bulwark did the same thing for me, so I will share it with all of you. If you were Chris Krebs, would you flee the country? Your answer before last week would probably be no. Your answer after last week is probably maybe. Your answer after the coming week might be absolutely. If you are Chris Krebs and this week Bukele refused to return Abrego Garcia and the Supreme Court decides to let Trump get away with it, would you stay in America or would you flee the country for your safety? Let's pretend for a second that you chose to leave. You show up at the Canadian border and file a claim of political asylum, alleging that you are fleeing political persecution in America and have reason to believe that remaining in your homeland would lead to indefinite imprisonment in a Salvadoran concentration camp. What would the Canadian legal system make of such a claim? Would they say this was outlandish and unfounded, or would they believe it is an accurate depiction of what America has become? Judge Luttig, as the esteemed legal mind in our gathering, what do you think?
Well, Nicole, Chris Krebs is one of the finest American citizens in the country today, and he's certainly one of the most courageous American citizens. It's worth reminding your viewers that Chris Krebs was in Donald Trump's first administration in high office as in charge of cybersecurity at Homeland Security, Homeland Security, and he actually was responsible for ensuring that the election of 2020 was safe from cybersecurity attacks. And once the election was over and he determined that it had not been influenced in any way whatsoever by cybersecurity or cyber attack, he publicly made that statement, as it was his obligation to do as the person who held that office at Homeland Security. It is that statement which Donald Trump interpreted as a denial of his assertion that the 2020 election was stolen, that led to the outrageous executive order against Chris Krebs and Miles Taylor last week. I said, as soon as that executive order issued, that was the most corrupt and constitutionally corrupt executive order that Donald Trump had issued to date at that point. But let me return to the bulwarks point. Again, Chris Krebs is a friend, and he's one of the most courageous American citizens today. I read that bulwark thing, and I had been talking to Chris Krebs, and it was heartbreaking to read the bulwark piece. And I was reading it with my wife in the room, and I was reading it out loud. And when I finished, I said, this is America today because of the President of the United States. The point made, whether or not it's true, the point made is that what Donald Trump is doing today to other residents and citizens of the United States, he could do to any one of us. Any one of us. And the American people must understand that. Donald Trump is willing and fully prepared to grab off the street and deport any person in this country that he believes ought not be here. And that includes any of us, Nicole, not just his so-called enemies.